Okay, say some more stuff.
Yo! Hi, my name is Ben Pherson. Welcome back to the Pigskin Podcast. I am Ben Pherson. This is Francis. As you know, Jason's gone. I'm sure this co-host will be far more productive than Mr. Feldman, but he is on vacation, a brief vacation. He will be back for the games Tuesday night. As you may have noticed, this is a special edition of the podcast. Aside from this joker being gone, first round of playoffs, Tuesday night, lots of good games, some sections that have some unusually good games in the first round, so we'll get right to those, but we'll quick, and I keep saying we, by we I mean me and photographer Ken and Hannah, who will do the editing here. You know, they're all involved in this process, far more involved in this cat. But Vikings won 24-16. If you follow my Twitter, you know I wasn't real thrilled with the performance. The offense was just pathetic, and I know some people are thinking that things are going to get better when Teddy arrives, but I would argue a lot of the issues yesterday for me were the play calling. Some odd play calling, and I don't know that that's going to get better when Teddy gets back. If anything, I think they might make the playbook smaller when he gets back. So runs on long third downs and just a lot of goofy play calling for me. The offense is broken. It needs to be fixed. They got the best defense in the league, but the offense, if it doesn't get better, they're not going to be able to beat the top teams. Gophers, they won. Equally as ugly as the Gophers, and same drill for them. The offense is just terrible. They went with Demray Croft as they kind of needed to do, but I think we saw this weekend why he hasn't been in the lineup all year. You know, he still struggles to throw the football, and him running that read option, my biggest beef with him is I think he wants every play to be 10, 20-yard gain. He's got to realize in that read option, 4 yards is enough a lot of times, and I think right now he tries to dance a little bit and like I said, tries to look for that big gain rather than just getting upfield and taking the 3-4 yards that's there sometimes rather than trying to turn everything into a big play. But either way, a win, and honestly, when you've lost 3 straight, you need a win, and they got that over Illinois. Now things get much tougher here this week with down in Iowa, and obviously a much more important game because if you lose this, I always say if you win the Iowa game, I don't care if you go 0 for whatever the rest of the year, as long as you beat Iowa, that's all that I care about. So, Mr. Fleck, if you're watching, I know you're not, but still, you got to beat Iowa because I can't stand Iowa. But let's get to the high school stuff. Feldy did send me his picks for this week. I may change a few just to make sure he gets some wrong. I am sitting in his chair too. If I look like I'm way taller this week, since he's always in this booster chair that he needs to sit in to try to be even remotely close to my stature. But my player of the week this week, Ethan Sense from Rushford Peterson. He's a junior running back. Had a ridiculous game against Blooming Prairie. 277 yards, 44 carries, 5 touchdowns in a very close game. It was 39-35, so they need all of his scores. So just a great game from Mr. Sense, and really a big game for Rushford Peterson overall. Obviously, it helped their section seeding, but for them to beat a quality team like Blooming Prairie going into the postseason has to give them confidence. And I'm sure, Goodhue is obviously, you can't look past anyone because it's a tough section, so you can't look past anybody. But a rematch with Goodhue, I'm sure, would be all that Rushford wants right now. So big win for them. Feldy's player of the week, Mike Coble, Byron, also a huge game, 5 touchdowns. And basically, his play at the end of the first half, to me, looking at this game from the outside, his play at the end of the first half, intercepting a pass, returning at the distance, and what had been a back and forth game shifted all the momentum to Byron, and Byron really dominated the second half of that game. And I think when you have a pick 6 right before intermission, I think that's a real backbreaker for a team. And we saw Stewartville kind of went downhill after that. Good news for Stewartville is that they get a chance to prove themselves again in the playoffs, and likely probably going to play Byron right away in the second round. So it's going to be really interesting. 1 AAA is a really interesting section, so we'll get to that real quick. Right now, honestly, we don't need to waste time because I think really Feldman is the guy who wastes a lot of time. Like, this big podcast would be a lot quicker if he just would leave. But both of us went 4-3 last week, as is usually the case. I think we picked 4 games different last week, so we split those 2, of course, which is kind of what we always do. So we both went 4-3 last week. Hopefully be a little better this week. But honestly, for a first round of playoffs, there are a lot of really good games. So we'll jump right into it here. First one, right here in town, rematch, Century at Mayo. Maybe someone's saying, why are you guys even picking that game? Mayo destroyed them the first time. I think it's going to be closer this time. I really do. I think Century knows what it needs to do differently. Obviously, they can't turn the ball over. Their offense isn't good enough for them to turn the football over. Their defense is incredible, but their offense isn't good enough to hand Mayo any points. So I think Century will try to slow things down, let their defense be what they are, let them control things. I still got to go with the Spartans. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think what ends up happening is Mayo wins 14-7. Feldy also went with Mayo, and I'm going to make up a score for him. I think he thinks it's going to be a blowout. I think he thinks it's going to be 70-0. So if you want to send him an email, Century people, yeah, you know where to find his email address. But next one is John Marshall at Austin. They did not play. I don't think they played in the regular season. But Austin's 4-4. JM's 1-7. Austin playing pretty darn well. I mean, their offense is pretty well proven this year. They put up points against just about everybody other than Northfield. You know, they put up over 30 points against Owatonna, and that's impressive right there. JM, you know, kind of let me down last week. I really thought they had a chance to be in that football game and kind of got away from them in the second half. To go down to Austin, a town that's really behind that football team right now, it's going to be a very uphill battle for JM. I don't know if they can score enough points to beat Austin this game, because you're going to give up points to Austin. So if JM can figure some things out, they're also dealing with some injuries now, so it's going to be a tough battle. Can they win? Absolutely. Will they? I don't see it happening. I'm going to go with Austin 35-21. And Feldy also has Austin winning that one. No score listed, so we'll say 2-0. And then the next one, we're going to stay in the same section. This is a real interesting. Actually, this is a 1-4 game. Red Wing at Albert Lee. Yes, you're reading that correct. Albert Lee at 0-8 has a home game in the first round of the playoffs against another 0-8 team. You need more teams in these sections. It's just, you know, Mr. Royce wrote a column that I happen to agree with, which is rare. But he wrote a column about high school football playoffs and making teams earn it. I think 0-8. What are we doing? What are we playing for? And I saw some arguments on that saying, well, let the kid, you know, gives the kids motivation to still play this game. I said, yeah, but what's the motivation for the regular season then? So that's 8 games you're sacrificing for one playoff game. And honestly, okay, this is 0-8 versus 0-8. That's a problem with the high school league not having too many classes for high school football. But what we see a lot of times is 8-0 versus 0-8 the first round of the playoffs. No point in that game. I mean, why show up like Hayfield going to Goodhue in the first round? That's why. I don't understand. I don't like to give Wisconsin credit very often, just as an entire state, but they do the playoffs right. I like what they do. You got to have a 500 record, or at least a 500 record in your conference. So if you took on a tougher non-conference schedule, you're not penalized for that. But you got to be 4-4 to get into the postseason. Yes, that makes it tougher to figure out where you're going, how many teams make the playoffs. It makes for probably a couple brutal days for their high school league trying to figure out the playoffs, but you get a way better product and a way better quality of postseason, and teams have to earn it. They have to get into the I don't think 500 record is too ridiculous to require a team to get into the postseason. So we'll see. I don't see anything changing. I don't think the high school league will do that, but I did agree with Mr. Royce there. On to this game, Red Wing at Albert Lee, both teams 0-8. I think the Wingers go down there and get it done. Just looking at Albert Lee and the teams they've played, Albert Lee is losing to some smaller teams, some real small teams, and Red Wing at least has played a very tough schedule, played some very good teams in the Big Nine. So I'm going to go with the Wingers. I think we're going to see a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be Red Wing 19, Albert Lee 12. Feldy felt the same. He went with Red Wing as well. I'm going to give that score also 2-0. Next one, Section 1 AA. Kenyon Wanamingo 4-4 at Lewiston Altura, also 4-4. Again, we'll talk about strength of schedule, and I think Lewiston took on a much tougher schedule than Kenyon. Not Kenyon's fault. You know, when you got district scheduling now, there's nothing you can do about that schedule. So, not Kenyon's fault. I just don't think they've played the quality of competition that Lewiston has, and it's over there. So I got to go with Lewiston Altura 31 and Kenyon Wanamingo 14. Feldy also agreed with me on that pick. I really should have just changed all his picks to make sure he got all these wrong, but I can't do that because I'm not very good at picking football games. So he also had Lewiston Altura. I'm going to go with 4-0 on that one for Feldy. Staying in the same section, 1-2A. St. Charles 3-5 at Chatfield 4-4. Chatfield closed the season with a very good win at Dover Yoda. Really took it to Dover Yoda. They're doing some things right. And I know they've had to make some adjustments due to injuries on the way they operate their offense, particularly. St. Charles kind of struggled at the end of the season. They had a tougher schedule at the end of the year. Feldy is going with St. Charles in this one. I'm going to go with Chatfield. I just think being a home playoff game, I think this might be the closest game of the week. I'm going to go with Chatfield 14-13, and Feldy goes with St. Charles 6-0. A lot of shutouts on Feldy's board today. But next one, Section 4, AAA. This is the two teams that got moved out of our section, Lake City and Cannon Falls. Ironically, they end up facing each other in the first round of the playoffs. Lake City's 0-8 had Cass and Manorville 8-0 on the ropes last week. They were up by 2 scores in the second half of that game, and they could not hold on. They gave it a go, and I still will maintain that Lake City is a good football team despite that record. And they are at Cannon Falls, who's 2-6. Cannon Falls is one of the toughest teams for me to figure out this year. They've had some incredible performances against good teams, and then they've laid eggs against other teams. Feldy's going with Cannon Falls, and I might be dead wrong on this one, but I'm going to go with Lake City to get their first win in the playoffs, first win of the season. I've been doing this all year, and I've been getting it wrong all year, so Lake City, get a win for me. I got to go Lake City 30, Cannon Falls 24. I think that is going to be a shootout. I think both teams can put some points up. Both teams have very good running backs. We'll see. I'm excited to hear what that score ends up being. I think, like I said, Cannon Falls is a very hard team to figure out. So Feldy has Cannon Falls, so we got another one different. He has that one 79-4. Very odd score by Feldman again. Last game, probably saved the best for last. I think you look at Section 1 AAA, and that is just a loaded section. And I don't know if loaded is the right word. I guess balanced section, very top to bottom. I don't know who's winning that thing. So Zebroda Mazeppa 3-5 at Pine Island 4-4. Pine Island lost their season finale against Lourdes. I really expected them to be in that game a little bit better, so I don't know if it's just that Lourdes played that well or if Pine Island struggled a little bit there. Zebroda, another team we've been getting wrong all year that I think we thought was going to be this great team, and they've struggled. They've changed some things with their offense too. They got Nolte at quarterback now, but man, this is a tough game to pick. Feldy went with Pine Island, so seeing his pick first, I'm going to go the other direction. I actually had Pine Island written down, but I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to go with the Cougars. Like I said, I think this is the best game of the week. Cougars, if they can get the ball to Jacob Niebuhr, find ways to get him the ball. I don't care if you hand it off to him, throw it to him, dump it to him, whatever you got to do. Get him the ball, utilize his athleticism, his size, his speed, just his overall athletic ability. I think they can win that football game. Now, I think Pine Island has incredible lines. I think that's how they've hung in games, and they have a duo that might be the best in the area with Keegan Majerus and Josh Navratil. But I got to go with the Cougars. You know me, I like to go with the wrestlers, so I'm gonna stick with the Cougar this game. We'll go Cougars 20-19. Feldy has Pine Island 2-0. So that's it. Special edition of the Pigskin Podcast. We'll be back again later this week. We're going to shoot for Friday for the next round, so we make sure it's out before Saturday's games. Huge slate. The semifinals in most of these sections are going to be incredible. Close games, fun games. If you got some time on Saturday, get out to a game. Heck, if you got the time Tuesday night, get out to a game. Thanks for watching. We'll be back, and this guy will be back, so the podcast will inevitably be worse on Friday. But if you still tune in, we really appreciate it. Good luck this week, everybody.